become second nature for me to spew out what I've heard, and applied, of course. You have to live the talk.
We don't have to.
If you want any semblance of peace, you do.
Yeah, if you want peace, well, shit.
I was about 6 weeks sober, and I remember this so vividly. I announced to the group that I was confident I would never drink or use drugs again. I was on a pink cloud like you wouldn't believe. I was thinking, man, people are going to be coming up to me after the meeting and asking me what my secret is, and they're going to want my phone number. And I remember this procession of people after the meeting patting me on the back. Keep coming back, Kelly. It's not about confidence. Nowhere does it say, pull yourselves up by the bootstraps.
Hi there, and welcome to the Recovery Crew here at Deep Waters Recovery. I'm Dr. Bob Beare, and today we're going to talk about step 3, which is made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand him. So God as we understood God is an interesting phrase, isn't it? It's like, how many billions of people are there? That's how many conceptions of this thing called God or the universe or whatever language you want to use. That's the topic for today. So Kelly Cunningham and Camille Reid are going to join me in this discussion. You're in the deep waters here at Deep Waters Recovery, which means that you are part of the recovery crew. And we are doing experiential facilitator trainings, the Deep Waters Intensive, which is for folks who are ready to really dive in and offload some of the trauma that might be in the way of living your life authentically. We also have this podcast and a lot of other programs on the website, deepwatersrecovery.com. All right, glad you're here. Enjoy the show. You're in the deep waters now. Well, here we are again on the Recovery Crew here at Deep Waters, and this is going to be a fun one today. Kelly Cunningham and Camille Reid and I are going to have we're going to be bold to think we know something about step 3 in 12-step recovery. Maybe one of the areas of the work that it's a little bit grandiose to think we know anything about the mysteries of the universe and these things called God and stuff like that. But we're going to give it a shot anyway. We've been all three of us have been in the rooms of 12-step recovery for quite a while. We've also done quite a bit of inner work individually. So we're going to bring some of our experience, strength, and hope here in this conversation today. Before we launch, I'm going to ask Camille Reid, who is our programs coordinator at Deep Waters Recovery, to say some things about what's happening here. Will you, Camille?
Yes. Alrighty, so Deep Waters Recovery is an advanced recovery and healing experience for men and women. The Deep Waters Intensive, or DWI, is a 3-day transformational trauma resolution experience that uses psychodrama, bioenergetics, and rituals of empowerment. Our next training to be a facilitator of the workshop is June 4th and 5th. And it's an opportunity for anyone who works with others to do their own inner work and learn some of the action tools that they can use in groups as well. If you'd like to bring sustainable trauma resolution into the curriculum of your treatment facility, the Deep Waters programming is a good fit. Deep Waters also has an outpatient program, and you can work with Dr. Beare and his colleagues in groups, individuals, couples, and family sessions. So you can reach us by email. Is going to be admin@deepwatersrecovery.com, or by phone 512-677-7847. The podcasts come out on Fridays, blogs come out on Mondays, so you can follow, and share on all of our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then you can also follow Bob on TikTok as the Recovery and Trauma Guy, if you would like a laugh.
Why do you make that she makes that little smile like this old guy is on TikTok. Actually, it's a blast. I figured it out. It's a blast. My 18-year-old daughter said, hey, there's other old therapists on there. Why don't you do? And now I'm having a lot of fun with that.
It's funny. It's great.
All right. So just to introduce again here, Camille Reid is a peer recovery specialist and is a very organized person, by the way, which is the only reason any of this is happening, because she keeps things in boxes and files and things like that that would never occur to me. And picking up everything that falls off the wagon. So, or if you're not organized, you're at least more organized than me. And I'm grateful for the great work you're doing here at Deep Waters. Kelly Cunningham is one of the guys I go to when I don't really understand something about recovery. It's a world that he has immersed himself in. One of the guys with the best recovery that I know of. And I could say a bunch of other stuff about your things that you do in the world, but let's just say he's up and running pretty well. And he has a pretty messy story from the past, which all three of us do, right? It's a story of transformation, which is always true in recovery. It's miraculous. So today we are going to have a discussion about step 3. So just before we launch, I like to just sort of set it up by this is a series that we're doing on the steps. We're also doing a series on the traditions, but you can go to the website and find this series on the steps and the traditions. So so before we even do before we even get on to step 1, right? And the other thing I want to say is this is not just for a bunch of crazy alcoholics and addicts and the bias that I think we sometimes have, that the 12-step program is only for the people that we dragged out of the gutter. Right, which is me in a lot of ways, but these are principles and processes for living well as a human, and I think that's been pretty well established, especially in that the founder of AA said that Dr. Carl Jung's philosophies were the foundation stone of 12-step recovery. Dr. Jung's work is pretty ubiquitously, if that's a word, ubiquitously. It's everywhere now, more and more. I've got a couple of really young clients that are telling me about Jung's philosophy. Wow, how did you find out about that? I guess the world's starting to catch on that the unconscious, which runs the show, needs to be put a little light on it. It's not that it's bad and dark, but it's dark and it needs some light. 12-step recovery puts a little bit of light on the darkness. And we get to have more of ourselves available to ourselves in the world, right? So before we even get on to the first step, there's a lot of, when I first came in, I remember an old timer saying I was always, whenever there was a newcomer in the room, oh, it's a first step meeting. It's a first step meeting, which is not a bad idea because that, it's the first step. But there's some things to understand before that, like the nature of this disease, which is so cunning, baffling, and powerful that no psychiatrist, no doctor, nobody has ever figured it out or even come close. They found out in the 30s that only another alcoholic has a chance to help another alcoholic. Now, that is, and that has worked, the 12-step program works 100% of the time for people that actually work it. There aren't any other interventions that any of us or I've heard of that have that kind of results. But before we even start on the first step, which is we admitted we were powerless and that our lives had become unmanageable, before anybody's ready to admit that kind of stuff, they need to really understand that they have a disease. So that's what happens before the first step. And then we start looking at how our life is powerless and how the things that have happened that have proven that it's unmanageable. Right, our human mind, our alcoholic mind, thinks we're good. Right, how you doing? I'm fine. Right, so we start to break down some of this. It's denial because we only know about 3% of anything within us, and we break down to the denial of the fact that there is more to know. Right. The second step is coming to believe that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So once we start breaking ourselves down, we might feel a little nuts. We might feel a little desperate. Then we become ready to say, wait a minute, maybe there's more to this whole thing, right? Maybe there's more to this whole thing. Maybe they were right. Maybe the religious people, even though they're pompous and I don't like them very much, maybe there's something there, right? So then we might be ready for the third step, Kelly. We admitted made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand God. That there's really important, as we understand God, there's a lot of really important language in that step. And I'm just going to turn you loose here for a minute, Kelly, maybe to tell a little bit of your experience with this step, and maybe just get us going with this dialogue.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Bob. I was thinking when I was in the throes of my drinking and using drugs, I was living in a big 2-story White House, kind of like the one in Animal House. I know I'm aging myself with Jim Belushi. And it was like that too. There were parties all the time, cocaine flowing through the house, marijuana, lots of straight liquor, being drunk. But I remember so many times my room had this balcony that I could step out and look out over downtown San Marcos, and I'd be just like, my heart would be pounding out on my chest, and I would just walk out on the balcony and look up at the stars, and it's like, man, just someday things are going to be different, But nothing changed. Nothing changed because, that was. I came to believe that things would be better, but the made a decision was when I actually took steps to change things. And so I went to see, I had a job, and it said that I could get a psychological evaluation. And I really wanted to learn how to drink and use drugs like normal people, because I was, from the time I got up till the time I passed out, I was using every day for almost 10 years. Early teens to early 20s. And so, I went to this psychological evaluation. They said, some people can't drink and use drugs like normal people, or fill in the blank. I use drugs and alcohol, but this will apply to any addiction. But it's like, some people can't, drink and use drugs like normal people. There's a physical allergy, there's the phenomenon of craving, he didn't really talk about the spiritual malady at that time, but there's also a spiritual malady aspect that's mentioned in the doctor's opinion of the AA Big Book. So, and then he said, and so I basically checked myself into treatment, and I remember they said, you just have to go 24 hours at a time. And it's like, oh my God, who can go 24 hours without using drugs or alcohol? There's no way. And I know this sounds like a long story, but I'm getting to my point. I finally, was able to put some 24-hour periods together, and I ended up at the River Group in San Marcos, and I was about 6 weeks sober. And I remember this so vividly. I went into a meeting, I was feeling my oats, and I was, when it came to my turn to speak, I announced to the group that I was confident I would never drink or use drugs again. I was on a pink cloud like you wouldn't believe. And the whole rest of the meeting, I was thinking, man, people are going to be coming up to me after the meeting and asking me what my secret is. And they're going to want my phone number. I'm going to be so busy helping other people. And I remember this procession of people after the meeting patting me on the back. Keep coming back, Kelly.
Yeah.
It's not about confidence. Nowhere in the Big Book or in our literature does it say pull yourselves up by the bootstraps.
Yep, it's counter to everything that we learn in our culture about pounding our way to success, right?
It says abandon yourselves to God as you understand God, and that as you understand God is so important too. But yeah, there's my third step story. It's like because after a period of time of not really working the steps and not working the program, I went back out, and that was pretty scary. But finally got the real gift of desperation, understanding that this is a fatal disease, and that if I'm gonna really save my life, I've got to make some serious choices.
I think you're pointing at something really important, which is, and we laugh at it because we've been on this topic for so long, but for just most people, the idea is to get control, right? We want to get control of our lives. We want to we want to have better self-will. We want to improve our self-will. I want to read something from the book that's on that topic and hear what you have to say. The first requirement is that we can be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with something or somebody. Even though our motives are good, most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. Yeah, there's more, which essentially says, yeah, it doesn't work out too well. Yes?
Yes.
Anybody here have any control issues? No.
I feel like on a daily basis, I'm just saying in my head, like, wow, if all these people would just do what I need them to do, then I wouldn't be in such a predicament, you know? Like,
Yep.
It's all these people out here. Like, I need them to do what I need them to do.
Yep. Not drinking alcohol, not using drugs, not acting out in relationships, on and on and on, are a daily. We get a daily reprieve from this, right? Because we keep doing the work, which it's very specific. There's some specific things we have to do to be able to become able to let go of this control. And my point is, control is and arranging the players. This has to be let go of every 24 hours as well. We don't get cured from this stuff, right, Kelly?
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. So the third step is it's just like all of the steps, it's an ongoing process. It is not an event. It's like, okay, right now, Kelly, don't move your glasses like that. Oh, wait a minute, Camille, could you? I think your camera could come up just a little bit. And if you, all right, wait a minute, hang on, it's going fine. I mean, I made that all up, but I could be doing that. So the step 3 is for me, it is a place that it's a major shift, right, toward my perspective that I'm running the show, and it's not easy. I mean, anybody who does the third step in an afternoon is probably not, because it's the question of, and how about this whole question of God as you understand God as I understand. You mean I don't have to take Kelly's idea of what God is? Is that what you're going to give me freedom to like create my own? Is that what you're saying?
You know, I was thinking of like when you're at a job, when you're at a staff meeting and there's a leader and they have a clipboard and they have all these assignments like, okay, you take this and you take this and you take that. And I remember, you know, kind of early on in sobriety and even late in sobriety, thinking that my time with my higher power was like a staff meeting. It's like, okay, God, I've got this, you can have this, and this. And then somebody sent me a prayer. It's like, you know, God wants us to give everything over to, you know, to him, her, spirit of the universe, whatever your conception is. And that was such a relief. It's like, you know, I don't get to hand pick what I turn over.
Yeah. There's that how acronym that we use: honest, open-mindedness, and willingness. I think the third step can be encapsulated in the idea of willingness. I've just got to be willing to see that maybe there's more to this thing than my figuring it out. Because my figuring it out, that's why it's the third step and not the first step, because it takes a little while to get that my figuring it out has not been great. And if I'm going to have a chance, I've got to like open up to the other 99.99% of the universe that I was previously unaware of.
And I think the third step is also about where do we put our attention, you know? Bob, you've heard my story. You know, I've struggled for 3 decades with anger and being critical and just being rageful, even though I was, going to meetings, working the program, sponsoring others. There were times when it just wouldn't take very much at all for me to spin off and go on some kind of angry tirade, and also resulting in the need for making amends later. And I just hit bottom a couple of years ago, and I was like, why not turn over my anger to God? And so for 6 months, every day, probably 10 times a day, I asked God, help me to resist the urge to criticize and to judge. Help me to resist the impulse to lash out when I feel threatened or slighted, which is often because I'm sensitive. And I just really put my attention towards every day, all day long, turning things over. And it was such a beautiful transformation to see how situations that used to bother me would stop bothering me.
Yeah.
And it was like, so it's not like this paternalistic being that's like, I'm going to take Kelly's anger away. It's like I turn to higher consciousness to deal with an issue that I was having. And I focused my attention on it, focused my attention towards higher consciousness. And I found peace, and it's probably been the most amazing part of my recovery is just finally, I guess there was a period where my anger served me, but when I hit bottom, it was like, this is not serving me any longer. I'm not happy. I'm not peaceful. I'm not emotionally sober, and what's the point of being sober if you can't be peaceful?
My prayers used to be that you son of a bitch, or that guy did it to me, or that I have long stories about different organizations that have done stuff to me. These are just a couple of examples of my former prayer life. Please, if I was to add a please God, it would please God, smite them or something, because my point is, this program encourages me, if you don't like the idea of God or prayer or that kind of stuff, I don't have too much of a trigger about it anymore. But if you don't like that, then it's really, like Kelly just said, for me, it's about changing my awareness, my view, the way that I approach things. And I can't just change my mind. I have to have rituals of transformation. That's what you just taught. You started a ritual for yourself in the morning to counteract the natural ritual of resentment. I'm Bob, and I'm addicted to resentments. Really, I get a little high from them. It's like, whoa, yeah, let's choke them. So I need a different ritual that that helps me to turn my attention off of that and onto a different kind of resentment just creates tension. My prayer rituals in the morning are not like anyone else's. I'll guarantee you that. It's just like a casual conversation with an entity that I don't even know who or what or where it is. What I love about the program is that there's nobody, well, there's a few people trying to cram some things down my throat, but I'm uncrammable. So, but for the most part, I get the freedom to explore my experience of this universe in my way. And I don't know of too many places where that kind of freedom is built into the program. You know what I mean?
Yeah. After a period of where I wasn't finding myself so quick to anger, I started to up my game a little bit. I started asking God for my first thought. Instead of using, my first thought is alcoholic and I have to process through that. Well, I'm asking God now, help my first thought to come from love and compassion, and not use the excuse that, my first thought is going to be impulsive. It doesn't have to be. It's like I just have to retrain myself to not assume the worst about somebody or some situation, and think from like, wow, I wonder what's going on with that person to cause them to behave that way.
Yeah.
I hope they're okay. And wow, what a change going from a selfish, alcoholic mind to thinking, coming from, a place of, sometimes my affirmation is I see myself and others through eyes of love, because that's what I want. I want to have a vision where I'm a, a loving human being instead of an angry, resentful, asshole.
Yep. And you and I have a lot of years of practice being angry assholes. It's like meditation. How many years of anxious, trying to control things, experience do I have? I'm a master at it, right? It's going to take some time with meditation, yoga, a rhythm of prayer, or whatever language you want to use around that, to develop a practice where I have compassion as opposed to resentment. It takes practice. And I've got to be around people like Kelly. Kelly's such a good, compassionate guy. Maybe it'll just rub off when I'm around him. But also, being in these rooms, you get some ideas of how to practice it, right? What's your practice on this third step stuff, Camille?
My practice, so I think you said willingness that was my first experience with it, because I needed to make the whole conversation more complicated than it needed to be. And I also was scared that somebody was trying to cram religion down my throat. I had a huge fear about that. And I think that kept me away from getting well for a really long time. Step 3 kept me away for a very long time, because I knew that I had issues, but I was not ready to give up any self-will. So what it came for me was, somebody kind of giving me some tough love and saying, this is just about your willingness. And just knowing that you're not the center of the universe, even though I really think that I am. I really think that I'm, that's something that I have to tell myself every day. You're not even close to the biggest thing out here. And then my practice with it too, I know that, whatever God, higher power, whatever you want to call it, for me, it's always just nature and energy, and having the awareness of how I show up in my relationship with these things. What is my relationship with that person? Can I see my higher power in them, even whenever they do make me really mad? What am I getting from this interaction, and how can I turn that into, seeing the spiritual within that? And I think just step 3 was a lot of awareness and willingness for me, and just looking at all of my self-will and how destructive it had been every day.
I think it's pretty practical, actually. I was just thinking, listening to that, it's pretty practical to get a few more people or a few more energies in the universe, even though that language is so woo-woo and new age. I don't know how else to say it, but when it's just me, that's a pretty small team. And that's why my life was so small before recovery. It was I couldn't get any traction. I used to say that a lot. I can't get any traction in this world. It's because I wasn't in the world. I was in me. Mm-hmm. So this whole practice of opening up my awareness, as Kelly said, to the bigger world. Maybe, for me, sometimes I have no clue what this God thing is. And cramming it into a box of God is just even a little, what? Why would I? Trying to even put language on it. This is the hardest topic right here. This is the hardest topic. How are you going to describe God? We do, Camille and I do these intensive weekends, and we try to explain it to people. It's unexplainable, because a lot of the stuff that goes on there is at a different level of transformation and spirituality. You have to experience it, just like 12-step recovery. Have you ever tried to explain what happens there to somebody it's come on, brother, come with me. And then you tell me what's happening in there. Yeah.
For some of us, self-sufficiency is a trauma response. We've been screwed over, messed around, nothing has gone right for us in the past. So we're not going to trust in a higher power. And we're going to take things in our own control. And And for me, when I feel like I have to be self-sufficient, that's a very lonely experience, and then when I feel that loneliness, then I feel like, it becomes so self-fulfilling to where there's a temptation for me to turn to self-destructive behaviors to cope.
Yeah.
But just the opposite though, when I feel like I'm loved and supported, and that I have, a greater, perspective of, then that's when I feel like the most confident. It's like, so yeah, self-sufficiency can be a trauma response for some of us.
Yeah. Trust, that whole word. This is the trust step. I was also just thinking about the self-will topic, right? Made a decision to my will and my life. The first response is turn over my will to who? Who is it? Right? No, that is not something that anybody can just do, nor would they be encouraged to, right? It got us here. Our self-will, look, with the stuff we've been through, look at us. We're pretty we made it. On self-will, so we don't need to give it all up. But here's the twist that I always think is pretty cool in step 3. Now I use my will to try to align with the rhythm of the universe, or align with God, or align with the flow. How about that? They're all too new agey for me. I don't have any language for it, but now I use my will to try to align. It's like the 3rd step prayer is, God, I offer myself to you to build with me, to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Please, God, it's hard to just be trying to run the show. Please relieve me of the bondage of self, that I might better do your will, and take away my difficulties. The victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy love and thy love and thy way of life. I think that's pretty close.
Yeah.
So I'm not praying to get a bunch of shit that I want. I'm praying to be in alignment, using my will toward that. You know what I mean? Isn't that kind of a tricky? So I don't have to give up all of my will, do I, Kelly?
Well, you mentioned in the 3rd step prayer is take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness. It's like, that's the true purpose of recovery, is to fit us to be in positions of service. And I believe that the reason for that's the genius of this program, is because there's no satisfaction in self-seeking. Camille was talking about, she knows she's not the center of the universe, because there's no joy in that. There's no satisfaction in self-seeking. But when I find myself in a position to give back, that creates a sensation of fulfillment. That's what I was looking for in the drugs and the alcohol and the ice cream and the cupcakes and the whatever else, the shopping, gambling. So yeah, and that's the genius of the program. The true purpose is to fit us to be of service to God and to our fellows.
Yeah, man. So we try to keep we're trying to keep this series around a half an hour, and I know the 3 of us could we could sit here all day on this particular topic, and we will have you back, Kelly, to talk more. We're going to definitely do have your wisdom on tradition 3 also, but I want to hear more of your story on the podcast at some point too. But let's move toward letting go here. But there's a couple of questions I'm going to throw out here that are just a little fun rhythm that we do. We call this the drop the rock question. We'll just use one of them. So I'm going to throw it at you. What is spirituality to you? Just a nice little easy topic, right? But why don't you just take a spontaneous shot at that, either Camille or Kelly, and then I'll go.
Go, Camille.
Oh, okay, I'll go. Spirituality to me, I think I would just keep it simple and say that it's freedom and inner peace and connection. Like those 3 things wrapped together for me is what it means to live spiritual principles.
Nice. Mr. Cunningham?
I think of the quote that says religion is for people who don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people who've already been there and don't want to go back.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. For me, this is when I experience it. It's when I'm in a group of people that are being really real, and something gets sparked in me, and maybe a touch, a tear of truth. For me, there's a touching of this thing you guys call God. For me, maybe that's spirituality, something like that. When emotional truth is expressed.
Yeah, good one.
All right, now just for a fun one to close with, because it is related to the topic. It's like, isn't this supposed to be fun? God, am I supposed to be like grinding away at my life, or is it supposed to be fun? Okay, so that's my question for God today. But in the meantime, until I get my answer, here's the question I want to throw at you guys. You go first, Kelly. It is something that gives you joy in your life.
Something that gives me joy. I always feel good when I'm creative. So like I will think like, and I like to work with like wood and stuff like that. So, for example, there was we just bought a little vacation home, and it had a fence that was blocking the view of this little lake that we're on. And so I took that fence down, and then when we came out of our front door, it's like our neighbors are like right there. So I moved that fence, I reconstructed it to create a privacy screen. And so every time I walked up, it's like, yep, I did that. I took one fence down, put another, I repurposed the fence. And so just being creative like that and visualizing a project and bringing it into fruition it brings me joy.
Thank you. Camille?
I think because it's spring is in the air outside, I've been thinking about this a lot, but getting my hands like in the earth, I think, and like gardening, and I guess it's sort of like creating as well, because once I plant something and then I get to see it bloom like a couple weeks later, it's definitely something that brings me joy every day. Like when I walk outside and I'm like, oh, there's my flower, look at it, doing good, just living, growing. It's a lot of joy around that.
Thank you. I can't just answer it with one thing. I'm an Enneagram 7 for anybody that knows what that is. We can't have just one joy. It's so watching my daughter grow, it's an amazing beauty, just the most beautiful thing for me, has been and is. Fishing, golf, and music, singing, and writing lyrics.
That's nice.
So cool to be with you guys. I never have folks on the podcast that I don't like, but I really like you guys. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Thanks, Bob.
And, it was a fun discussion.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you mean the world to me, Bob. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Camille, would you, hey, Kelly, if somebody wanted to reach out and say that you're a real asshole, and I wanted to let you know that, actually, nobody's going to do that. But if somebody wanted to reach out and around, can they find you somewhere? If they wanted to reach out for sobriety purposes or recovery?
Yeah, they can. I'm always open for people to text me. I don't like to get calls because I get so much spam. I might not answer it. But if somebody texts me and say, hey, I heard you on a podcast, would like to talk to you, I would definitely be open to that.
Well, cool. And if somebody wants to reach Kelly, because he's got such good recovery, there might be somebody listening who says, hey, I need some help from this guy. Well, they can just reach out to us at Deep Waters, and we will connect you. So, and Camille, will you say something about Deep Water? Just briefly say what's happening here again, in case somebody just came here in the end. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So if you would like to reach out to us and get more information about what we're up to, our next experiential facilitators training is June 4th. And then we've got the Deep Waters Intensives coming as well. If you want to send us an email, it's going to be admin, ADMIN @deepwatersrecovery.com. Or you can give us a phone call. Let's see if I have the phone number up still. It's going to be 512-677-7847. The podcasts come out on Friday, and then the blogs are on Mondays. So give us a like, share, and follow, and we'll see you around.
Thank you. Okay, so that was step 3, and step 3, by the way, is the steps are in order for a reason. We better have some sense of a higher power before we launch into step 4, where we really look at our deeper, uncomfortable selves, right? We go into that with a support system, other people as well as God as we understand God. So that'll be the next one in the series. All right, thank you both. Thanks for everyone listening. You're in the deep waters now.